Do a little run of show. The artist whose work is the subject of the exhibition, Coralina Rodriguez-Meyer, will be speaking first, and they will discuss their backgrounds, their work, their practice. Then I'll come back up and I'll give a little overview of the exhibition, walk through some of the objects that we showed, and then finally Michelle Moncrief will come and discuss how she used the exhibition in her course for students who are pursuing health careers in her health humanities course, and use the objects in that work. So Coralina, if you want to come on up. Hello. A little short. Before I introduce myself, I want to throw a question out there to contemplate as I present the work. How do we culturally translate knowledge across ancestries that climate and fertility justice is public health? That is the central question of the collaborative infrastructure that I believe we've created in this process. I'm super honored to have presented my work at Thomas Jefferson University with Megan Bowler in the medical college there as a result of Michelle Moncrief connecting us after she learned about my project that Melanie curated. So just this panel itself demonstrates the kind of matriarchal infrastructure and the radical justice work inherent that is cultivating and evolving within the institutions, which are individuals. Everyone in this room who is at a different scale of power within this navigational structure has the ability to weave these matriarchal infrastructures into the work you're doing, into the communities that your institutions live within. All right. So, sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm going to use this. I'm Coralina Rodriguez-Meyer. I am a Kipukamoyak artist that translates as culture keeper. I work across architecture, archives, advocacy, installation, documentary sculpture, and photography. I'm based between Brooklyn and Miami, which is where a lot of the work has unfolded over the last 2 decades. I've been collaborating specifically within climate and reproductive health communities, in collaboration with my neighbors and different advocates such as griots, doulas, santeras, botanicas, and different leaders. So, I am an indigenous Andean American Kipukamoyak. I work across these fields to heal broken bonds between institutions and individuals in the community that cultivated me. My work has been conceived in collaboration with these folks, LGBTQIA+, or Team Hui. In our culture, it's called melanated and immigrant neighbors. These matriarchs that sort of raised me came into my life, and you can go ahead and go to the first slide. Oh, I am. Okay, sorry. There we go. Thank you. So this is a photograph of me and my mother. That's the car that I was born in the Everglades swamp, that I entered the world. That is currently known as Seminole and Mississippi land on the river and grass between the Florida Keys and Homestead, Florida, which became very well known during Hurricane Andrew in 1992. I was born during Reaganomics. This photo was shot during the Clinton era, or excuse me, the Bush era, first Bush era. This was the morning after the storm. I am sort of very emo baby Coralina because I had just found out that my best friend had lost her life during the storm. And so we were unhoused for many months afterwards. And this was just 5 years after I had just lost my mom as a result of a domestic violence dispute in that house. And so part of my work is, of course, in parallel with this reconstitution, reconstruction, and preservation of the landscape, because those things have never been separate in our matriarchal culture. And in the attempt of plantation labor systems to eviscerate our matriarchal currencies and these infrastructures, there has long been this conflicting climate and reproductive health crises in our community. And that is why I talk about fertility. The word fertility refers to multiple scales of justice. It speaks to the inherent traditions of our culture and how those have been cultivated across communities. And so from transgressing this trauma was not only a daily ritual practice in the recipes or the cumbias or the quinoa that my abuelas and my matriarchs in my community have taught me and passed on across ancestries, but I also found this joy in the archives and this transgressive resilience even in the Virgen Brutas or these kind of cenotes or these sanctuaries in the landscape across the Caribbean where I was raised, as well as in the archives in Peru, which I was so joyful to research in my academic work. This is one of the earlier works called the Linea Negra series. The Linea Negra is the hemispheric melanin line that divides the body into two binary parts during gestation. I started the Mamás Pa Botánica workshop where we take photographs, we have discussions about our matrilineal traditions. How am I doing on time? Okay.
We are gonna have, I apologize, but we are gonna have to transition to maybe Melanie and Michelle sharing because they're gonna force us to stop at 10:30.
So yeah, you can, I guess the quick version is that this is a collaborative project of infrastructures. This was 10 years later after my infertility diagnosis, having my child dilated 8 centimeters in the hospital in Miami during a tropical storm. It's called, these are urban heat zones, and this is a recent exhibition at Project Row House in the Southern Survey Biennial, and an installation of my collaborator, Dula Nikki Dawkins. Anyway, these are in this, and I will end with the exhibition with Megan Voller. And yeah, I mean, we can discuss more afterwards, but I think the key that I'm really excited about is that this work has continued to evolve across scale and institutional structures, and thank you.
Thank you, Carolina.
Okay, thank you so much, Carolina. I think you gave a nice introduction, a preview of your work, so I won't spend too much time talking about the exhibition specifically so we can get to Michelle's portion. But it's just these plaster cast models that are then embellished and decorated, and we've placed into these kind of votive-like, shrine-like installations. So this was the exhibition that was held at the university, and which Michelle brought her students to see. So if you want to come on up.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for still being here. Where are we? Oh. Okay. So here is a picture of my students at the University of Maryland, Art Gallery. I went to the art gallery, went to Melanie's office, literally banged on the door and said, I understand you're going to be having this exhibition. Can we come and see this? And Melanie graciously said yes. Afterwards, after we went to the exhibition, Melanie put me in touch with Carolina, who then spoke to my students at a presentation, very wonderfully, appropriately length presentation to my students. And it was one of the best experiences of the 15-week course. Now, here are my students. They are mostly STEM students, really important. We took STEM students out of the lab and we took them to the art gallery. These students are doing things like neuroscience and biology. They're taking 400 level chemistry courses, and they went to the art gallery. Because they are completing a minor in humanities, health, and medicine. About 20 students for each of the classes. Now, the students wrote reflections at the very end of the course, the reflection about going to the art gallery, about interacting with Melanie and with Coralina. And these excerpts, they could have written about anything in terms of the 15-week course, but they spoke about their experience in terms of going to the gallery and how that impacted them. So these tired, these burnt out science majors, and what was formative for them was this experience in terms of getting out of the classroom and getting to the gallery. Here are some of their excerpts. I just want to emphasize, when we're talking about art making, we're talking about these topics, it's the people behind it, so the story behind the creation of art. I have an image up there of Dr. Shalon Irving. She died 3 weeks after giving birth. When we think about issues of maternal mortality and maternal morbidity, we need to think about the narratives that go on and that influence us in terms of creating art. So she's up here, but obviously no longer with us. But remember her name, because we need to remember the name again behind these narratives. Student reflection, the exhibition made me think of different ways art can tell a story, especially in the healthcare field. The course that I teach focuses on a number of different issues, from health disparities all the way through death and dying, all the way through to the history of medicine, for example. So here is the work created by the students. Again, these STEM students at the end of 15 weeks, they don't do an exam, but they do create a piece of art. And it might be 4, 5 years since they've ever sort of created any piece of art. So this, as you can see, a yew tree, the focus here is on death and dying. I'm starting to see a real necessity to incorporate the arts into recovery for patients, as well as the education for healthcare workers in training. Again, reflection from students. This student, in terms of artwork, from again, STEM student, flips the narrative. Here we focus on physician, healthcare worker burnout. This is the work they have created. Now through the field trip to the art museum on campus, I can understand how medicine can be further explained and talked about through various art pieces. When observing the sculpture, Coralina's work, in the art exhibit, it was beautiful to see how healthcare topics such as maternal life can be depicted through art and tell specific stories. You can read 10 different journal articles that are untranslatable, or you can go to the art gallery and you can experience Coralina's work. I'd rather take them to the art gallery rather than forcing them to read these 10 journal articles. This particular work here, again, student work. This student has now gone off to medical school because I wrote her reference. Again, this is her work talking about issues of bioethics, the Hippocratic Oath, and the reality of what black women face, because we think about the data says black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die during the birth experience than white women. That is the data that supports these particular pieces of art. I'd like to hand over to Coralina to close this presentation. I think it's rightly appropriate.
Wow, this has just been such an honor. I will depart again with another question to contemplate, but how can we preserve and protect our vulnerable universal bodies and landscape across movements, genders, geographies, and generations? I think these folks here on this panel have demonstrated a very broad and deep way to connect with one another, to transgress the kind of burn coming through our screens. And I think meeting with one another, sharing space, embodied archives, whether I'm talking about 5,000 BCE mummies from the Andes, or we're talking about the potential violence of images that we've seen, all of those embedded DNA experiences can also be transgressed. And they have, our ancestries have long survived millennia, thousands of years of evolution, way before the plantation labor system hit these shores. So I encourage everyone to dance this year, to cook, to be with one another, and to remember those experiences that are multi-sensory and shared. And also to use your spaces and your resources in the most radical ways possible, above, in parallel, and below your structure of power. Thank you. Woo.
Thank you everyone for joining us. We're past time and we need to clear the head table for the next